beautiful thing about doing an on-site podcast with someone who is in photography is that they can help you set up the room correctly.
Yes.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yes, anytime.
So, first of all, really great that you were able to come out to Cali and then be at the sanctuary. Mm-hmm. So travel was good.
Yeah,
it was great.
Everything's great. I'm so happy to be out here. It's kind of a jump from being in Yellowstone to coming out to California. Lots more people, but being out here is really nice.
Yeah. Do you get, I don't know if this is because when we had Ronan Donovan on, and he sort of said the same thing. It's a lot of, when you come to LA, it's almost like a shock, or a bigger city, it's a shock to the system, especially when you're used to being in the wilderness and to those things. Do you get that too? Is that something that happens with the nervous system?
It's interesting. I feel every time I come back from like a wild space like Yellowstone, where there's a lot of people, but it's a different environment entirely. And so while you might be caught up in a bear jam, it's way less traffic than you get on a highway. Or even just walking around like downtown LA, it's definitely very different. And I live just outside Seattle. And so where I live, it's a pretty small community, but still a lot of people, even in comparison to Yellowstone. So yeah, it's always an interesting jump.
Yeah. And even, I have to say, even when we come to the sanctuary too, that's our respite from daily life and making sure like, oh, there's an actual space that we can sort of reset, recharge, do the things we need to do, and hang with the wolves, of course, which is obviously the best part.
Yes.
And do the things we need to do.
Yeah.
Hannah had some good experiences we'll talk about in just a minute. But I mean, what was that like for you? I always like to ask this when anybody who's on site and we do these podcasts afterwards. What was going through your head? What was stuff that was coming up? Just give everybody sort of an idea.
Yeah, I think at a couple moments I got a little teary-eyed walking through and just being so close to them. It's just kind of this like experience once in a lifetime that you don't really get, especially when we're talking like wild wolves. And even though we're walking alongside wolf dogs, they are so closely resemblant in their behavior and just their vocalizations, so resemblant of actual wild wolves. And so to be around an animal that I have grown to love over the last few years so much was just, I don't know, like I don't want to say out of body, but kind of in a way, especially when winter came up to my face and licked me. And it's just things you don't really get to experience, obviously, out in the wild. And yeah, just to get to see them close up is pretty special.
Talk more about the vocalizations, because we had a few different instances of vocalization where we were walking to one of our dens and we stopped in the middle of the trail and we heard vocalization. Then you had a couple of up close. Just talk about how that was sort of reverberating in your body and what was going on there.
Yeah, the reverberation is like the first word that came to my mind, because when you're standing, even on trail, you rarely hear wolf howls that close, right? Like even in Yellowstone, I was just there and heard them probably from about a mile, maybe like half mile away. And you don't get that same reverb. It's still this like, I don't even know, surreal experience to just hear it. But when you're that close, you get to feel it in your chest, right? Like and that's just something that's kind of unfathomable in many ways, to just feel it reverb off of your chest, and just it like made the hairs on my arm stand up. And it's just, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's one of those things that we take for granted here, because we're here every day, 365, doing all this stuff. And I think that's the one thing that snaps us as staff and volunteers out of those things and snaps us back into, you're at this very special and unique place that not many people get to experience. I mean, we get people that come here all the time, but on a regular basis to see, hear, feel, get all the sort of emotions and get all the sort of sensory that you don't get when you're maybe in some of these other places, it's really unique and special.
Yeah, and even the smell, right? And in the patter of their paws on the ground and their little grumbles and their breathing, you're so up close with them. It's, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, we had some really good interactions with some of our like Jax and Ragnar, and just getting to see the different personalities. What was that too? What stuck out to you, if anything, about just their personalities and the differences in the way that they approached or they acted, because you got to see, I think, the wide variety or the wide range that they have here at the sanctuary.
It's a nice reminder, honestly, to see those different types of, I don't know, like physical cues, I guess, from them to make sure you're respecting what they want the interaction to be. So as we were walking through, obviously some didn't necessarily want us to come close. Others were very curious and allowed that interaction. And I think it's important to remember it's on their time. It's not something that's like forced upon them that we are going up to them and seeing, right? And I think that was really cool, was to see how they dictated the interaction more so than you or I did. And they have to be willing in order to have those interactions, right? And so I think just seeing that side, but also seeing like the shyness of some of them, some of the more like exuberant and curious ones.
Yeah.
And it's the same as like when you observe wolves in the wild, it's the same thing. They all have different personalities, and it's pretty awesome to see up close because you don't get that.
No, and that I think is the craziest part, is that we get to see some of the wild characteristics up close. And then when you go to Yellowstone or to another place that you're able to actually witness them out in the wild in their actual natural environment, how similar these cues are, how similar the physical interactions are. And that's something I never really get tired of hearing from people such as yourself or the Ronan Donovans or the Taylor Rabies, anybody who's out there witnessing these wild wolves on a fairly regular basis, more than myself, is to just see how close in relation and how closely they interact with each other out in these wild spaces.
Yeah, down to like their body language too. Seeing that up close is something you usually see through scopes in places like Yellowstone. And so to see the way their legs move and to see the way they hold their head and the way they kind of like lick their chops and just
Right.
kind of the way their ears move, to see it up close. Yeah, it's just, I could go on. It's super special.
I mean, what was the thing? I know you mentioned winter. Was there anything else that stood out for you? Any other particular wolf that stood out to you while we were going through? You were sort of hearing the stories. Anything that sort of hit you in a different way?
I think, what's the gal with one leg? Or
Annie.
missing? Annie.
Yeah.
I think, to me, wolves embody resilience, right? Just in general, like an overarching kind of, I don't know, keyword we can say. And her specific situation and having 3 legs, I think further embodies that. Just the resilience of wolves, that they have the determination to keep on going, is something I think we as humans can totally take a page out of their book. And so to see it happening here and seeing her thrive was really special.
Yeah. I mean, when we go through all this stuff, and I mean, you've been busy. So it's like it was interesting because when we were communicating before you came here, I was like, oh, you're going to be in California and what's going on? And you just said you came from you were in Grand Teton, then you're in Yellowstone. I mean, just tell everybody what you've been up to, because there's been so much going on. You've been a very busy person. What's been happening?
So I was in Yellowstone for a few weeks, kind of split some time between there and Grand Teton at the end there. And in Yellowstone, I was hosting a photography workshop, women's photography workshop, which was really special to see. 2 of the gals, it was their first time in the park. So to facilitate that kind of experience was incredible. I wish I could be a fly on the wall during my first experience. And that's kind of like the next best thing. And so we kind of just toured around Yellowstone, saw as much wildlife as possible. There's so many grizzly bears out right now, and all of their cubs, and the koi, which are probably like so small. They're so cute and fluffy. Only saw some koi though from pretty far away. I really wanted to see a mountain bluebird and got very lucky seeing a mountain bluebird. I love wolves, obviously, and that was kind of the priority. So the first day back, we got to see the Molly's pack from pretty far out, but they were feeding on a carcass, and that was just so cool. I could see it like just through my camera lens, even no scope needed, with the naked eye, honestly.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. Usually your interaction with wild wolves there is at least like a mile away through a scope most often, unless you get very lucky with a road crossing, which happened.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that. I mean, in post in the video podcast, Stephen, we're going to put up the picture now. Talk about this. So talk about this photo, and if it doesn't work out, we'll obviously have it on the Instagram so you guys can see it. But talk about this photo and this sort of experience with this wolf. And it was from the Wapiti, you said? Or,
Yeah.
it's from the Wapiti pack.
Wapiti
Yeah,
White
talk
Pack.
about this.
Yeah. Apologies if I get a little emotional because it feels like it was an experience that's like been a lifetime in the making. And so I had met up with Julie Argyle. We've met a few times before, and we actually really connected this time, which was really special. And so she and I kind of walked around and just like talked and caught up, and we ended up just being so lucky in a wild crossing situation. And so I met up with Julie Argyle one evening, and then the following evening was the first night of my photography workshop. And the Wapitis are pretty active all the time. They often cross the road for carcasses down by the river. Their den area is on one side of the road, and so they're often crossing. And they're actually one of the wolf packs that I did photograph last time I was in the park as well. In September, they had been crossing the road, and I got exceptionally lucky. And once again, so anyways, there was a situation. There is a young yearling wolf, and he has been crossing the road pretty often in and around the Hayden Valley area. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time and spent 4 minutes and 20 seconds photographing this gray yearling wolf. And it's surreal to even be able to be in the presence of wild wolves, let alone be able to be like a steward for their story. And I think, here we go. And I think that's why it's just such a special encounter for me, because the average person doesn't get that experience, right? You don't ever really hear of people just stumbling upon a road crossing of a wolf and spending 4 minutes and 20 seconds with it. But I somehow, alongside a few other friends of mine, got so incredibly lucky to share this moment. And it's honestly not a moment I take lightly. It's, of course, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but also the nuances and other things you have to think about as it relates to photographing wolves is just always so heavy in my mind, and especially with this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that just hearing that is it's such a profound moment in time. Just go into more about, because you say this, when we spoke to you last on the podcast, you really went into the storytelling and the stewardship part of this. Why is that so important? Especially for you. And I know Julie Argyle does this stuff. Shout out to you, Julie. And all the work that she does with her photographs. Why is that such a driving force for you when you're in these parks?
Yeah, I think it's honestly what Julie does is so admirable. And I really would just love to continue her work, in a different capacity through my own voice. I think what she's done is, I don't even have a word for it, honestly. Like, it's just so important. And I feel for some reason or another, it is like my absolute duty to be able to communicate stories so that other people can experience it, at least through photos or through writing or through video. Because if we don't have these stories, how are people going to know? How are people going to learn? I think we can read articles all day and in scientific papers, but to see the intimate lives of wolves in the wild in a safe place is such important work. And I feel so lucky to have been given a tool and an art to be able to capture these stories and these lives. And doing that through photography is just like my purpose. It truly feels like my purpose.
We've seen this balance. It seems like it's equaled out a little bit more, where we have the scientific cross merging or melding with this creative part of storytelling and photography and videography. So many of these scientists on the side are incredibly creative. Kira Cassidy comes to mind. And so I wonder what you see as you're out there as a creative and seeing that more of these stories are starting to meld, not just in science, but really in creative. We're sort of melding the two together. What are you seeing from your perspective?
I see a lot of that, and it's really incredible because I think a lot of scientific language can really bog down people in terms of like what they're able to understand, what they're able to digest. And so when you pair science with art, I just feel like it's such a sweet spot, especially when we're talking apex predators like wolves or grizzly bears or cougars. And so it's cool to see the likes of Kira Cassidy really communicating in that way, reaching so many different people, right? And that's kind of the goal, is to be able to help communicate that research and those findings through the art of photography and video. And this experience with this yearling wapiti wolf is really a culmination of like all of that, and also just solidified my role in the landscape. And we're talking like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to piggyback off that, I don't know if we touched on this in the last conversation we had, but what does that feel like to have a solidifying purpose? And correct me if I'm wrong on it, but it seems like you've been looking for that sort of purpose. And like I said, if I'm wrong, let me know. But it's like you've really been driving towards something, and now it sort of showed itself. I wonder if it was the wolf that did it, or if it was that trip or the workshop. I mean, you tell me.
I have been looking for a purpose probably for the last since I left college. I think we go to school and we do the thing, and we are told this is what your life is going to look like. And for some reason, what people told me my life was going to look like didn't really align with what I wanted my life to look like. Now, I didn't know what I wanted it to look like. I just knew it wasn't the 9-to-5 corporate sitting on behind a desk,
I remember
the whole
that,
thing.
yeah.
So,
The whole thing, yeah.
So I just remember it not clicking for me. And along this last 10-year period, I think I've just grown into photography so much. And the art in general has just always been something I've been drawn to. But I don't know specifically a moment in time where I was like, it's the wolves. I feel like it's always been there for me. I've always loved wolves since I was a child. And I think I had this moment of, oh, wow, I can use my art to help communicate something I care so deeply for, and to advocate for, and to educate with. And so it's the best, most at ease feeling and existence I think I've ever had. And to have that just feels like such a privilege, to just be calm and just know I'm on the right path, and I know that I'm doing the right thing with my photography.
Talk about this workshop too. And you surround yourself with the likes of Julie Argyle, and you surround yourself, and we discussed this too in our first conversation about being a platform to encourage or help or promote, female photography, and make sure that there is a platform for it, and to make sure that there is access to it, because it's been such a male-dominated field. Not that I don't think any, reason. I don't think there's a reason to put one, male or female down. It's just a matter of how do we get both sides and both sort of these visions together. We see, Ronan Donovan do his thing, and it's spectacular. And, in the History Museum, we see yourself and Julie Argyle. So in these workshops that you're doing, or you're starting to do, what are you seeing with the folks that join those? And what are they expressing?
Yeah, I think this specific one was just exceptional in so many ways. We got incredibly lucky with that wolf sighting, but I think to take a bird's eye view right after that moment of that encounter, we all were crying, and we were all saying thank you. We were all just overcome with this wild emotion. This the reverb that we felt when we were walking through the sanctuary is such a similar reverb. Even though this wolf was calmly walking, it's just this unexplainable feeling. And so that collective of just pure happiness and pure being at ease with these 3 gals that came on this trip with me is just truly what it's all about. I struggle to see a world in which I stop ever leading photography workshops for women. And it's interesting because when I first announced this photography workshop, I did get a little bit of pushback from some folks just saying that it was unfair to host a women's only photography workshop. And I found it really interesting. And I took a step back and kind of just observed maybe like why this person might feel this way. And if I was doing the right thing. And I think from personal experience, like I've never found it to be a female dominated field. And so providing that space for women is so important. And so I took that comment into consideration and with like some critical thinking as well. And I just was like, you know what? No, like this is important. Like when I see women like Julie Argyle out in the field, it's just so empowering to see. And so I want to provide that space for other folks as well. And we had the best group dynamic, and it was like we were fast friends after. And I think that's one of the best parts about those really small group trips, those small group workshops, is just there's 3 other gals and myself and our guide, and we're able to be nimble. We're able to see what we want to see. We're able to communicate. And yeah, it's really awesome.
I think that's part of the critical thinking is so valuable and important in these things, is that we look back and we sort of take things in really like wolves. Because, really doing the critical thinking and seeing, is this really the path forward, and to be so steadfast in what you want to do, and to understand, who knows, I'm sure you may be doing a workshop where it's everyone in it, but there are certain things that maybe need to be done at certain times. And it's good that you stood and, took the comment and just sort of thought about it. And that's always good. I think people sometimes think you have to knee-jerk reaction everything. And it's always good to just sort of sit in it for a minute and be uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's the same when we're talking photography too. Like I mentioned a little earlier, like there's so much nuance, especially with wolves when it comes to photographing them. And there's so much you have to think critically about, especially as somebody with an audience and a portfolio, and I work with brands and things like that. Like it's very important to make sure the animal is first. The animal is always first.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just like an important thing to know as it relates to photography.
Yeah. And what's cool with you is you have all these really impressive connections. I mean, we're talking about Leo Leckie, our own Leo Leckie, and he's out there.
Leo's the best.
He's the best. He's incredible. Another shout out to Leo. Because he really embodies all these things. And that's why it seems you're melding between 2 worlds, and this, this scientific and this guiding and this creative side. And you have this unique opportunity to really sort of help bring all these things together and show people, hey, there's a way to incorporate all of these things to really help all 3 of these communities out. And it's really an unstoppable creative force when everything can get together like that, which is pretty cool.
It honestly, it doesn't feel like it's my life. And also I just like think with all of the people that have paved the road before me, like Julie Argyle, like Leo, like all the other people that I've met in the park, it's thanks to them that we're able to sit here and have this conversation. Right. So,
yeah. I mean, for you, what are you taking from this visit? Because I have a feeling I'll see you again.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll come back to Wolf Connection at some point. But for this one, I know it's your first. What are you taking with you? Any particular lesson, any story, any wolf? What are you taking with you?
I think it's always, it's very similar to when I leave Yellowstone or any other wild space. Like this truly feels like a sanctuary away from the chaos that is LA, right? And I think watching them be so at ease and just curious at the same time and being open to communicating how they're feeling. Obviously, I'm a little anthropomorphizing here just for the sake of communicating, but just watching the way they're able to communicate with me makes me want to be a better communicator and makes it feel so much more important being up close with them, understanding them a little bit more deeply.
And that's hopefully what we try to get across is we're a space to find your voice, to be at ease, to find yourself if it's lost, or maybe it's just to sort of rediscover what's been missing. I know I've rediscovered some stuff in myself that's been sort of locked down. It's been great, my love for animals and things like that. So it's great to be able to share that with you and everybody else that comes up here. For anybody who's watching or listening, where can they follow, find all your stuff, maybe see this photo, which will be on our Instagram? But
yes, it will. It hasn't been posted anywhere yet, but
but where, your website, your Instagram, where can people follow you, maybe sign up for the next workshop? Where can they go to all that stuff?
For sure. My website, which has my portfolio and all of my workshop information, is called hannahscamera.com. And my Instagram is my name, Hannah Rheaume. And will you link that in the show notes, or should
Absolutely.
I spell it?
No,
okay.
I'll link it in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah. My last question for you, Hannah, is when you hear the word wolf, what's the thing that comes to your mind?
Today, I'm going to say curiosity. And I think it's a beautiful observation that we can make about all wolves, and whether they're curious in their packs, whether they're curious here in the sanctuary, they are always hungry to learn more and to just continue that curiosity. And I really love that about them.
Same here. Thank you so much for coming up and doing this.
You.
This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hannah Rheaume, everybody. Go to our show notes for all the photos and all the links and stuff like that. Until next time, how's to y'all. Bye, everybody. Looking for more information about Wolf Connection or the podcast? Please visit our website at wolfconnection.org, where you can donate, sponsor a wolf, or become a volunteer.